From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Thanks for joining the McLaughlin Group, a show where friends disagree agreeably. I'm your host, Tom Rogan. This week's panelists are author and columnist Pat Buchanan, the Daily Beast's Eleanor Clift, the Chicago Tribune's Clarence Page, and legal and political analyst Seth Berensweig. Okay, let's get to the awards. Biggest winner of 2019, Pat.
Vladimir Putin, the new power broker of the Middle East. All roads lead to Putin. He's sitting in the catbird seat while the United States of America, winner of the Cold War, is tearing itself apart over what a troll farm in Russia did in 2016.
Eleanor agrees with that, I'm sure.
Eleanor agrees with it. I do have. There
wow,
it is.
okay.
Putin. That's right. He benefits from the disarray in NATO, from the absence of U.S. leadership in the Middle East, and the fact, as Nancy Pelosi has said repeatedly, all roads lead to Russia. But I hate to just give it to him. So I'm going to also say the planet is a winner, because I think people are finally paying serious attention to the climate change and the warming of the planet, and we have a new young generation making it their top priority.
Okay, Seth.
Well, I have to agree again with Pat. I think Vladimir Putin is going to be difficult to vote against. He has really fundamentally reshaped the balance of international power. And regardless of what he does or how he kind of fakes his way forward or how many people he may try to be taking out, there really seems to be nothing left of the doctrine of deterrence. So lots of activity, but very little pushback.
Do you think part of the issue there, Seth, might be that we talked about the Mueller report, we talk about some of the things Vladimir Putin may or may not be doing, probably is doing against the United States, but we try and resolve it too often with American civil jurisprudence, which is not necessarily well predisposed to dealing with an ex-KGB colonel?
Well, it's a very interesting point, because the courts are very slow, and really their scope of power on this is somewhat limited. Typically, you would think that there would be other branches of government that would be able to respond to this, but the Mueller report really ended up kind of laying an egg, and it's really open season and open question as to whether anyone is really able to push back in any meaningful, measurable way.
Okay, Clarence, your winner.
Baby Yoda.
Okay.
Just when we thought the Star Wars universe had played out, here came the little character who breathes new life into it, nominated by my son, by the way. He's always right about such things. I call Baby Yoda the Greta Thunberg of the sci-fi world.
Okay, very good. My biggest winner of 2019 is going to be AOC, or AOC, as I call her actually. Everyone else calls her AOC, for her continuing leadership in moving the Democratic Party leftwards, young, but a lot of influence on a very proud and long-standing party. Okay, biggest loser, Pat.
That would be Prince Andrew, kicked out of Buckingham Palace in the worst scandal of the Windsor family since 1936.
Yep.
Edward VIII was deposed when he went off to marry Wallis Warfield Simpson, a twice married divorcee.
Okay, Eleanor.
That's a good one, although mine is a little more serious. Kids in cages. The thousands of minors who have been entrapped in this president's immigration policies, and thousands remain in detention, some of them traveling alone. And their experience in this country, which is supposed to be welcoming to immigrants, will tar many of these children forever.
Eleanor, do you think there will be any legal recourse for some of these children or their families in the future?
Well, they've got to do something with them. They just say, this is not Guantanamo. They can't hold people indefinitely without giving them some recourse. So I'm going to say yes to that. I don't know what it is, and it may have to wait for the next administration.
Okay.
Well, I'll be going in a little bit of a different direction here. I'm going to go with cybersecurity and data protection. Personal data privacy was a huge loser this year, and I think there's very little appreciation or understanding in the community at large about what some of the new legal requirements are, which are very significant both home and abroad. And it's also problematic because we have a lot of issues coming up with election security and It doesn't seem that the Senate is even really interested in taking up an election cybersecurity bill. So that's going to continue to be a big problem. Almost 10 billion records estimated this year being taken illegally by a variety of bad actors, and it's going to continue to be a huge problem.
Very good, very good. Okay.
I would have to say the Sackler family, just in dollar amount, the owners of Purdue Pharma, which puts out OxyContin, and nothing really makes up for the thousands of people who've died of overdoses because of their marketing policies. But this is the biggest case since the tobacco settlements, and still going on.
Okay. My biggest loser is Xi Jinping, leader of China, the Chinese premier. Weak economy, state control of the economy not looking so hot for China now, as they face challenges from Vietnam and other low-value exporters. And also Hong Kong. Look what's happening there. The Chinese dream doesn't look so popular at the moment for the Chinese premier. Okay, best politician, Pat.
Bojo.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson. Tremendous victory for the Conservatives, the best since Thatcher in the 80s, and inflicted a almost terminal defeat on the Labour Party, and everybody had mocked and ridiculed this great statesman.
Eleanor.
My best politician is a little closer to home, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, who has managed to navigate a very difficult relationship with the president and is making decisions that will impact the outcome of the next election, and that will impact how our Constitution is regarded in the future. And I just hope she's making the right ones. I have a lot of faith in her.
Well, I'm going to have to go with President Trump. He doesn't walk softly, but he sure carries a big stick. And every time you think that he's down and out, he comes right back out with a left and right hook. He yields tremendous power in his party. He really has the Senate following him lockstep. So it's difficult to think of someone who continues to be fighting back with such efficiency as Donald Trump.
Pat is looking at you with just pure adoration.
Pure admiration.
She did a great job there.
Clarence.
Well, surprise, surprise, Nancy Pelosi. I had to call that as well. I mean, she's just been remarkable when everybody else seemed rather flummoxed by this president. He seems flummoxed by her. I don't know how this impeachment deal is going to turn out in the long run. So far, though, she's been remarkably successful in maneuvering the craziness of Capitol Hill.
All right. My best politician will be Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader. Whatever you think of his politics, the ability to push through so many judicial nominees will reshape the federal courts for many years to come. Okay. Worst politician, Pat.
Jeremy Corbyn. Labor leader turned in the worst performance since 1935, was it?
Yep.
And the Labor Party's in grave, grave trouble, lost in the Midlands and lost all of Scotland almost. The Scottish National Party took 80% of the seats. And Corbyn, as I indicated last week, is not long for this world.
Yes. Well, at least not long for the political world.
Okay.
Hopefully long for the world.
Again, mine is closer to home. Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, who just won as a Democrat in a swing district, doesn't want to support impeachment, met with President Trump, who declared Mr. Van Drew very smart, and Van Drew announced he's now going to become a Republican. A number of his staff members quit, and both sides in his district, pro-impeachment and anti-impeachment, are furious at him. That's not a smart move.
Okay.
Well, I'm going abroad. I'm going to have to go with Kim Jong-un. He is the leader that has probably caused the hugest degree of human suffering in the world in a nation of about 25 million people. He continues to imprison people, torture and murder people. His population continues to starve to death. So he is really one of the cruelest dictators on the planet, and it's a tough club, but unfortunately I think he wins that.
Yeah, well said. Okay, Clarence, yours.
Well, once again, Congressman Louis Gohmert,
Okay.
our Texas manages to get to the top of my list. I thought he might be unseated this year, but no, every time he steps up to the microphone and commenting on the current impeachment controversy, it brings us a new level of comedy.
My worst politician will be John McDonnell, who is the shadow chancellor, at least for the moment, Jeremy Corbyn's right-hand man. Tried to reshape British politics, the sort of Karl Rove for Jeremy Corbyn, the brain of Jeremy Corbyn, as you might say. that brain does not seem to be delivering so well. Okay, most defining political moment, Pat.
Robert Mueller comes out with his report and says no collusion, no conspiracy, and we can't prove or disprove obstruction of justice. 2 years of effort blown up. Trump gets a free pass from there, but then Ukraine did come up a day or two later.
Right, yeah. The whistleblower emerges and exposes all the machinations around Ukraine. So that whistleblower really set, well, the current events that are ending this year and taking us into next year, historic events, set them all in motion.
Eleanor, do you think the whistleblower's name will come out either through his own choice or her own choice, or through a leak from a respected publication?
Eventually. I think a lot of people know who this person is, including the White House, but nobody wants to actually expose this person. Well, I think it would be a felony. So it will come out, but the whistleblower will not testify at the expected trial next year.
You agree with that, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay. Seth, yours.
1 million people rushed to the streets in Hong Kong to protest the proposed extradition bill, a significant percentage of the entire population. It's very difficult to take freedom away from a nation once they understand how special it is.
Yeah, very good, very good. Clarence.
That's very, very good indeed. I have to hang with the photo of Nancy Pelosi facing down Donald Trump over the conference table, pointing directly at him in Jacques fashion, and which has become her main page on Twitter. It was just something that defined what I was talking about earlier, the way she has withstood this administration.
And do you give her credit, Clarence, for the passage of the USMCA, the trade deal, the replacement for NAFTA? That seems to be a rare light of bipartisan cooperation.
It was important for both sides to be able to say they've done something this year, and that was an achievement. It shows if they want to get something done, they can do it.
Pat, you agree with that trade deal, or is it too free trade for you?
I mean, the USMCA, I agree with it. I don't think it's as dramatic or big as, post-NAFTA, but I think it's positive.
Eleanor, did you want to?
Right. Pelosi wants to maintain the Democratic hold on the House. If she can't show that she can produce for the voters something other than impeachment, they also passed a prescription drug coverage plan. So I hope the voters understand that positive things are happening in the House in addition to impeachment.
Seth, any thoughts on that?
No, I agree, and I think the timing was important to be able to demonstrate that they can continue to act in different manners and continue to step in concurrent directions, especially during this momentous time of impeachment. That was a strong message being sent by Ms. Pelosi.
Okay. Most defining political moment for me is Boris Johnson's win. Looks like Brexit's going to be happening. Big thing. People didn't expect it that degree. Most unreported story, Pat.
I think the lowest unemployment numbers for African Americans and women and minorities and Americans, 3.5%. Phenomenally good news. Underreported. The markets have hit top records 100 times this year. If Barack Obama had done this, the American press would be pounding it constantly day and night.
He would have, Trump just hasn't screwed it up. We'd be thankful for that.
Yeah. I have to counter that a bit because the economic growth is both coasts and some cities. And you had more jobs created in the borough of Queens between 2012 and 2016 than in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania combined. That's why Trump got elected, but he really hasn't fixed that problem. So there's an opportunity there for Democrats. But my underreported story, I guess, is the gutting of government by this president and all of the jobs that have gone unfilled or held by temporaries. And if he should win re-election, will he just continue to do all the jobs himself?
All right, Seth.
Somebody's got a job. 3.5% unemployment.
I think one of the most underreported stories this year was the declassification and release of footage from the camera of a Navy pilot that pictured UFOs that were flying over the ocean. And it, other than getting a quick story in the New York Times, really didn't get much play. You would have to think that unless Donald Trump flies one of the UFOs, people really aren't going to care very much.
Well said, Seth. I'm going to get onto that in a minute. Get ready. Clarence, yours.
That's good. People treat it like it was old news. You know? But I think getting back to the kids in cages story, to me, that's an underreported story. I keep wondering, how many are there now? What's the head count? What happened to these kids who weren't accounted for before? Have they been accounted for? Have parents and have families been reunited?
No,
these kids are in our custody as Americans right now. It's a very serious story.
Okay, very well said. All of those are very good. Seth's was the best, though, in that the reason I think that a lot of journalists are not writing about that particular story, the UFOs, although I was again this week, is that they don't want to discredit themselves. They don't want to appear as slightly wacky. But
and that doesn't bother you.
It doesn't bother me because I think the evidence in favor of this stuff is pretty overwhelming now and will keep it. In fact, I know it will keep coming. So something to watch for next year. Best comeback, Pat.
Carter Page. Here's an individual who was considered a Russian spy or asset, was disloyal to his country. We discover now that he's a patriot. He was working with the CIA. He's a victim of the deep state, and he's going to be a very rich man when he sues the government of the United States for what the FBI did to him.
Eleanor.
Best comeback, Bernie Sanders. He had a heart attack, and his numbers are better on the campaign trail post-heart attack. He won over the support of AOC and the progressive wing of the party, the future of the party, really. He's doing okay in Iowa. He's leading in New Hampshire, and he's got enough money to go the distance, whether he wins the nomination or not. I don't think he'll win the nomination, but don't discount Bernie Sanders and the role that he will play next year in deciding the Democratic nominee.
Okay, Seth.
Marie Yovanovitch, weathering the storm against some of the most powerful political forces on the planet. And just when you thought that she was down and out, she steps forward under the limelight, steps in front of the Congress in a moment of political courage, something that's not frequently seen here in Washington, D.C., and tells a story about freedom and democracy in Ukraine.
Rudy doesn't agree with you.
I heard.
Of the year.
Okay, Clarence.
I would say Greta Thunberg's response to President Trump mocking her crusade here earlier simply by repeating what the president had said about her. But I would thinking about your prediction on or statement in regard to Bernie. I was thinking that some credit goes to Joe Biden here for comebacks because everybody keeps counting him out. But he stayed consistently in the lead through the race so
he
far.
ends the year as a front runner still.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, well said, well said. My best comeback of the year is going to be Bernie Sanders as well. He continues to be a powerful force on the campaign trail. Let's see what happens with him. Certainly not down and out. Most original thinker, Pat.
You're not going to like this, Xi Jinping.
Okay.
I think his Belt and Road project of putting together Europe and Asia and Africa, buying these ports, lending these countries money, and then when they default, taking over their territory. It's Napoleonic in concept, and it's a real bid, the greatest bid I've seen in recent history, to take basically control of the world and to displace the United States of America. He's not a good man, but his vision is monstrous.
I agree with that. Eleanor.
Andrew Yang, presidential candidate, who remains in the race despite
He got in the debate. Good for him.
right, despite other more experienced candidates falling off, and it's because he is addressing jobs and jobs of the future. And I don't necessarily agree with his $1,000 a month to everybody, but he confronts the issues facing this country. Well, look at all the retail establishments that are shutting down and all the jobs that those are costing. We're going to get self-driving cars. What are the truck drivers going to do? I hope there aren't self-driving trucks. But, you know, this is serious, and whoever wins the presidency, I don't think Trump would appoint him, but he should get a position as a futurist because he is a creative thinker, and we need some creativity about what people are going to do for work in the future.
Very well said, very well said. Seth.
Well, I'm going to step into a different direction and enter into the world of business. Jeffrey Bezos. He has had a very interesting year. He has continued to accelerate corporate mergers and to continue to disrupt fundamentally American retail. Now he is also moving ahead and experimenting with drones, which will probably revolutionize the way that people here in this country get goods delivered. So whether you are recently selecting a book, or if you want to have something droned to your house sometime in the near future, he's very much leaning forward in corporate America.
Okay.
And he's keeping the Washington Post financially healthy, which is okay in my book, but newspapers in trouble everywhere. But I don't know who's responsible for the maglev train idea, but I'm all in favor of it. Elon Musk has been pushing it among others, because I like the idea of being able to go from Washington to New York in less than an hour. So we're heading that way.
Okay. My most original thinker, with not a particularly original answer here, is President Trump. Keeps throwing curveballs, keeps doing things that are quite astonishing, and yet somehow keeps on in there. Looks pretty good in the swing states at the moment. We'll see what happens, but some original thinking is paying off for him. Anyway, most stagnant thinker, Pat.
Kim Jong-un, he's gone back to testing rockets again, Cold War stuff, in your face. It's not going to work, but it's the same old program that his father and grandfather tried.
Okay, Eleanor.
White House aide Stephen Miller, who is the architect of some of the president's worst policies, particularly on immigration.
Okay, Seth.
Robert Mueller basically stepped into a historically crucial moment of legal analysis and treated it like a librarian in a straitjacket. He said, I don't know exactly what opposition research costs. Apparently, ignorance of the law is an excuse. Very interesting analysis, not very creative, even within the bounds of the law. So I think that's definitely worth a vote.
Does anyone else here have a thought on Robert Mueller? It seemed to be his personal appearance before Congress, although the report did not seem terribly compelling.
I think he was more of a figurehead at the head of this massive investigation, and I don't think he did have full command or control. And he also was, I think, tightly bound by William Barr and what he could and couldn't do. And he went into it knowing that he could not really indict the president, and he had this, I think, false sense of fairness that if you can't indict him, you really can't make the case.
Pat, do you agree with that?
I think there's a point there, but it was astonishing. Well, what I found when he came up with, he said, look, there is no conspiracy, no collusion. On the obstruction of justice, he listed a number of things, but he didn't move ahead because he said one reason was, we can't indict the President of the United States. But, I think he was conscientious, but why? If they really wanted to go after the President, they got 18 guys under him, 18 lawyers.
Yeah.
They couldn't persuade him to say anything, or...
Yeah.
Well, they didn't follow the money either, which I found that to be a big disappointment. He didn't say no conspiracy, no conclusion. He said no criminal conspiracy, and there was lots of collusion. The whole first chapter of the Mueller report details all of the friendly collusion.
Right.
You would think they would put it in the impeachment resolution if there was something there.
Okay, Clarence, we're not going to resolve Mueller report today. Clarence, you're most stagnant thinker.
I like Jonathan Turley, both personally and professionally, but I was really disappointed in his testimony opposed to the impeachment of the president, which sounded like a flip of his testimony against the impeachment of Bill Clinton, saying that we can't use this standard because it's not been used before.
Okay.
And that was a pretty weak argument.
He was for the impeachment of Clinton.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
yes.
Right.
Okay. My most stagnant thinker is going to be Kim Jong-un for the same reasons that Pat outlined. Get ready for more ICBM tests. Exciting times or not. 10. Honorable mention. Pat.
The Russophobes in this city, whose hostility
And this set, maybe.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a critic of Putin, and even more. But for heaven's sakes, the great presidents, Eisenhower, Reagan, Nixon, Republicans and others, always sought out the leader of the Soviet Union, not because they're wonderful people, but because they've got all these rockets and atomic bombs, and you got to deal with them and negotiate with them. We got a couple of arms control agreements we're letting lapse because we're not talking to the Russians. They want to continue them.
Okay, Eleanor.
Well, President Trump says he doesn't want to continue those arms control agreements, and that's not because they haven't met. It's for whatever has popped into the president's mind most recently. But I would give honorable mention to the Virginia Democrats who turned Pat Buchanan's home state of Virginia, blue, and forces him to live amongst us blue people every day. That actually is a considerable achievement that they have turned that state blue.
Okay, Seth.
I give honorable mention to the scientists and astronomers that were able to this year provide the first picture of a black hole emitting light that actually occurred over 55 million years ago. And just to put that in perspective, the dinosaurs were around just a little over 60 million years ago. The fact that we're able to put that in perspective for all of us to see on our cell phones, really a remarkable moment.
Beautiful. Good shout out. I like it, Seth. Clarence, yours.
Well, I took the honorable mention title literally and said who was really honorable this year, who deserves some mention. And a young fellow named Ryan Quixote, a 9-year-old in Napa, California, who saved $74 of his own money to pay off the lunch debt of kids who could not get lunch because they were behind in paying for their lunch at the school, and they've changed the policy now out there as a result of this.
Wow.
I think it was really, I mean, great kid. Wish he was mine. I mean,
Very good. Very good. Well, you have a great kid as well, but that is a very good one. My honorable mention will be A Squadron, Delta Force, and the 160th Special Operations Air Regiment, which doesn't get as much attention as well, for their role in bringing to justice Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. He was at large for too long. He is no longer at large. That is fortunate. Okay. Thank you for watching. Happy holidays. See you next time.